It's not happening as fast as people want it to happen. And I said, look, I mean, it's global FOMO. I said, look, probably a country in Africa will be the next to announce Bitcoin as legal tender. And I said that 3 or 4 days ago. And then this will create FOMO internationally. So now, going back to Central America, now those countries that were sitting on the fence will be like, oh my God, you know, we've got to now move because this is going global. So global FOMO kicking in. So Africa saw what's happening there. So they made Bitcoin legal tender. Now that's going to be reciprocated over back in Central America and Latin America. And then it goes to global FOMO. And pretty soon you're going to have 20, 30, 40 countries on Bitcoin as legal tender.
Yeah, so that's 2 nations with legal tender. And according to UN charters, that should then be tax-free in all countries around the world because it's a currency of a nation. So this is 2. They point out that compared to this Bitcoin Magazine article about the Central African Republic, says that while the majority, comparing it to El Salvador, while the majority of El Salvador's population did not have access to the banking system when the country's Bitcoin adoption began, internet access in El Salvador was widespread. However, the same cannot be said for CAR. Internet penetration in the African country is estimated to be only 11.4% of the population.
Soon here, they're going to get internet connectivity pretty soon.
Yeah,
it's going to come because people are, you know, internet companies and phone companies are going to be like, wow, how many people live in this country? I don't know.
Elon Musk could also, you know,
do Starlink. Right. So the people want it, and there's a big market there, and they can leapfrog over the bureaucrats that have been keeping everything down. So this exciting times for this country.
Population. Let's see. I hear that it's big in uranium production. Population of Central African. I think it's several times bigger in population size. Oh no. Population of Central African Republic. So it's a small country too. It's 5 million people. You know, compared to El Salvador, which is 6 million.
Right. So, you know, somebody should do a screen for countries with populations under 10 million that don't have their own currency. And that would be a good hit list for the next to become Bitcoin as legal tender.
Except for a hit list, of course, is the economic hitmen may show up there. And I'm sure they're already thinking about that, of how to stop this from happening. Because, of course, like as we discussed at the top of the show, the EU, this is their now policy that has been leaked, is that they
designed to be attacked. When the EU says we need to attack the price of Bitcoin, that is music to Bitcoiners' ears, because all attacks mean greater hash rate, greater security, and higher prices. It's designed to be attacked. The more you attack it, the higher the price goes. So we welcome the EU's attacks and the IMF and Christine Lagarde and central banks and Federal Reserve Bank. Please attack me so that my price can go to $100,000, $200,000, $1 million a coin. Thank you.
And, you know, there's a quote that I have on my Twitter thing, which reminds me of what the president of the Central African Republic had said today. So this was a quote from President Bukele. Let no one tell us that we are too small to be big, right? And you essentially got the similar quote I read today from the president of CAR, where he said that, like, look at all this attention. Like, we adopt Bitcoin and everybody's talking about us. So, you know, nobody's ever talked about us in the mainstream media for a long time. So French derive paper currency if they wish, and, you know, be a colony of France, or they can just get online and become self-sovereign instantly. So yeah, there should be more motivation to get online and figure out ways to do that.
Right.
So
well, there's a lot of French African countries like Cameroon, Gabon, Ivory Coast, to name 3, and a couple of others. And they're all former French colonies, and they're all using French currency. And so this country definitely is going to resonate in all those countries. So you put these two together, that's 7 million and 5 million. That's right. That's 12 million is now on Bitcoin. So, and they're all part of the global population. So the number, the populations of countries that are now on Bitcoin standard in the last 2 days has almost doubled.
You know what? I was just thinking that, you know, there's a G7, the G8, the G20. We have the B2 now.
Yep.
we should do a B2 meeting between President Bukele and the president of.
It's the antidote to the G20 and the G7 is the B countries. It's the antidote to the World Economic Forum and the IMF, the B countries. So now I think the speed at which we find countries making Bitcoin legal tender is going to pick up. So El Salvador is less than a year ago that they made Bitcoin legal tender. So in less than a year, we've got 2 countries, and we're early on in this year. So by the end of 2022, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 other countries. So we're well now on our way toward global hyper-Bitcoinization.
The president's name is President Faustin Archange Touadera. So these are the B2. El Salvador and CAR. All right. This is cool. Like, who's going to be B3? Of course, you know, the B2 plus will have Lugano. Fort Worth, Texas, just started mining Bitcoin for the city. So that's pretty amazing. You're going to have like little city states like that, regions. Yeah. Cuba, their central bank just announced today, apparently, and somebody found the link on the actual government website, so it seems to be true. Again, like, you're going to see hyper-Bitcoinization is just going to happen. So you can, you know, sell and buy Bitcoin and use Bitcoin. So that's, you know, once that happens in a country like Cuba, you know, of course, Max and I are probably most responsible for orange pilling the population there, because our show, Keiser Report, was almost entirely Bitcoin content, and we had a bizarre, unique experience of our show being broadcast on state television there. So they're allowing it. And again, you know, Max always says, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. So I don't know, the leaders there must understand like what's going to happen. It's going to change the people of Cuba and therefore the country of Cuba. And so there's no going back. Once you go Bitcoin, you never go back.
Right. The right people are saying it's for them.
I'm just looking at Samson Mo's like tweets. Like, he's always coming up with these tweets suggesting that he does a lot of work, and Max and Stacy do a lot of surfing and beach time in El Salvador. To be fair, like, when we first went there, the first few months or weeks, like, you know, we had a hotel room in El Zonte, Bitcoin Beach. And then that's because we booked it while we were here. And then once we got there, then we realized how much work we had to do. And we were always having to go into El Salvador. Did more of our work from El Zonte then, but now when we go there, and we are leaving tomorrow, we're heading to El Salvador. Now we primarily base ourselves out of San Salvador, because that's where all the work is done.
Just because we make work look easy doesn't mean we're not working, Samson. Just because we're effortless in our work, you know, it doesn't. We're like the Fred and Ginger of Bitcoin. We're just pirouetting on the stage. I mean, it looks easy, right? Like, oh, yes, anyone can do that.
That's the thing.
A lot of work that goes into it.
I had a friend who's like a brilliant pianist, and he could play any music, and he does all this thing. And like, I've never played the piano, but when you watch him, you think you can play the piano. It's like, it looks so easy, right? Like,
yeah, it's a lot of work.
Just do this.
That's right. It's a lot of work to make it look easy, Samson. So you know, that's it. But we'll work this out next time we're seeing each other. Is Samson going to be down there next week? I don't know.